Hi everybody, and welcome back to another chapter in A History of Murder. Today we're going to be reading chapter 27. So we'll just recap really quickly. Chapter 26, when we left off, Chloe and Grandma had gone to the Vintage Grill and they'd taken food over to the park for a picnic style dinner. There's music in the park because remember, it's the Founders Day festival currently in Jericho Falls. So they're hanging out and Chloe sees creepy Malcolm Griggs looking strange, acting strange. He takes off from the park and she follows him. So that's where we're going to start tonight. We are going to be referring to tonight the Opera House again in Jericho Falls, and I'll just show you again. I love these photos of the inspiration place for the Jericho Falls Opera House, which is Piper's Opera House in Virginia City, Nevada. This is a vintage picture of Piper's. It's been renovated since, but here's an interior picture from back in the day, which is also just really beautiful. So if you want to know more, I encourage you to look up Piper's Opera House on the internet and see what place inspired the Jericho Falls Opera House. So, all right, let's start now with chapter 27, Into the Shadows. For a moment, I thought I'd lost him. But then I spotted his ragtag blue sweatshirt moving quickly past the windows of the Main Street shops. Some were closed and dark inside. Others had lights on, still open for business. Following at a safe distance, it became clear that Malcolm was headed for the Opera House. This wasn't odd. He worked there. But the way he was carrying himself, as if he was hiding from someone, made me concerned. I stayed on the opposite side of the street. A few tourists were still out, many going to the park for the live music about to begin. On the next block, I observed Anthony and Bree entering the Saddles and Spurs saloon together. He opened the door for her, and she stood on tiptoes to give him a quick peck on the cheek before going inside. Now, almost to the end of town, the lighting dimmed. With fewer and fewer people, I stayed back even farther. I didn't dare let Malcolm spot me following him. When Malcolm reached the Opera House, he entered through the heavy, worn-out side door. It gave its signature creak when he opened and closed it. There didn't appear to be a show tonight. The front doors were locked, and the theater looked dark. I waited for a moment at the far end of the block, debating whether to follow him into the building. I clenched my fists so tight my fingernails dug into my palms. Although I was curious about Malcolm, I had no business being here. Grandma was at the concert, probably worried sick by now. That is, if she hadn't eaten herself into a food coma. The sound of music swelled from the park. The concert had begun. I should go back, join Grandma Lily. I should leave the investigation to Chief Garner like he asked me to. I decided to turn around and admit defeat when a piercing scream rang out from inside the Opera House. I didn't hesitate a second before I ran inside. I entered through the same door Malcolm had gone through, hoisting open the heavy door and letting it close behind me. Inside, the theater was inky black except for the dimly lit exit signs at various places around the expansive room. I stood still, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. Then, as quietly as I could, I began taking slow steps. I let my fingers trace the wall for guidance. I listened intently and thought I heard breathing or possibly whimpering. I froze. Were those footsteps? My heartbeat was deafening in my ears. "Hello? Is someone there?" a voice called out in the darkness. It sent a shockwave of fear through me. "Please, help! I'm in here," the female voice said. I found my way to the ticket booth. As I got closer, a tiny desk lamp was putting out a small amount of light. Through the Dutch door, I saw Mariah lying on the floor. She was grimacing and holding her right leg. I opened the bottom door and went in. "What happened? Are you all right?" She blew air through her long bangs. "I'm fine, just incredibly clumsy. It's my bad knee. It tends to dislocate if I'm not careful." She winced. "I heard you scream from outside the building." Thank goodness you are here. Can you help me up? I should call an ambulance, I said. Gosh, no, it's not the first time this has happened, and unfortunately it won't be the last. She was trying to manage a smile. But it's the last time it happens because I tried to use an old file box for a step stool. We both spied the crushed cardboard box overturned in the middle of the room. What were you doing? I asked. Trying to change the light bulb. She pointed to the burned out bulb in the ceiling. I was too impatient to go downstairs for the ladder. Can this be our little secret? It's so embarrassing. I flashed the Scout's honor signal and helped her to her feet. She hopped to the chair and took a seat. I'll ice it when I get home and use my brace for a few days. But wait, where was Malcolm? He had just come inside. Why didn't he come running when Mariah called out? And what about Luke? Luke's not here tonight? I asked her. Mariah winced again as she rubbed her knee. No, he's out with college friends. I asked him to change the bulb a few days ago, but he must have forgotten. Can I help? I asked. I was 5 or 6 inches taller than Mariah, but when I tried, the bulb was still out of my reach. Rather than risking my own knees with another file box, I grabbed a short wooden bench from right outside the ticket booth door. Mariah groaned. Now there's a good idea. Sometimes being in too big of a hurry costs you. Once the new light bulb was in place and any ominous feelings subsided. Whew, now I can see. I'll get back to work. Which is? I asked. Mariah pointed to the very cardboard box that caused her downfall. I hope it was worth it. Me too, she said. What is it? I figured I was entitled to know after all this. Everything from Art's locker. Luke boxed it up for me today. I can't believe the amount of stuff Art accumulated. I'm supposed to look through it for the police and tell them if there's anything worth their time. She sighed and looked ruefully at the box. I really hate this kind of busy work. I could help, I offered. I mean, it would be nice to have something to keep me occupied. Mariah's face brightened. You'd do that for me? Sure. I tried to sound casual, as if I wasn't dying to see what clues might be contained in the box. You have no idea what a relief that is, Mariah said. I'm right in the middle of planning the Founders' Day ball and the fall lineup. Honestly, I'm overwhelmed. I nodded at her. I could come by in the morning to get started. That would be great, she said. Now I can go home and put up my leg. Are you able to drive? I asked, wishing I had a vehicle to take her home in. Yes, thankfully I don't have far to go, but could you help me get to my car? As Mariah hopped to a standing position, I remembered something from the other day, the antique walking stick. I took it from the corner. Here, will this help? Mariah blinked, then paused. Yeah, I suppose. I extended the walking stick to her, admiring the heavy cobalt blue glass knob on top. I bet this thing has an interesting history, I said. Mariah gave a half-hearted laugh before reaching out for it slowly. Most recently as a Mark Twain impersonator's cane at our last show. We shut off the lights in the ticket booth and locked the door. When we shuffled through the darkness of the theater by the light of my cell phone, Mariah took the weight off her injured knee with the old walking stick. Once we made it outside, Mariah locked the building's door with her ring of keys. The music was even louder than it was before. Bluegrass tunes swelled through the night air. My eyes landed on the woods surrounding the river nearby. What lurked in those trees? Was that where Malcolm went? Or was he still inside? Surely we would have heard him if he went through the creaky door. Mariah spoke and broke up my thoughts. I don't usually work this late all alone, but with Art gone, we're short-staffed. The other guys are great, but I really relied on Art, you know? Will you hire another handyman? I asked. I'm taking applications, but it's a trickier job than you might think, with a broad skill set. I need someone to step into the position right away. What about Malcolm? I asked pointedly. He's been here a while, right? Mariah gave a little snort while unlocking her older gray Suburban. No, not Malcolm. He's fine for building and moving sets, but she went quiet, as if she was deciding whether to confide in me. Actually, I was on the verge of firing him when Art died. He's always nosing around, can't mind his own business. I've finally had it. But now you can't let him go. Not until I find more help, she confirmed with a sigh. I wondered if Malcolm knew he was on the chopping block. Had he killed Art knowing that it would make him more valuable to Mariah? It seemed like an extreme measure to take. But then again, there was friction between the two men. And I was sure that he was in the theater somewhere when Mariah fell. If he was heartless enough not to help his boss after an accident, what else was he capable of? Mariah winced as she eased herself up into the car. She laid the walking stick across the seat. Hand me your phone, I told her. I'll give you my number. If you need anything, just call. I added myself to her contacts and handed it back to her through the open window of her Suburban. Thanks, Chloe. You're too kind. She started the engine. She began to leave, but then put the car back in park and asked, Why were you here, anyway? I mean, close enough to hear me. What could I say? That I was chasing her creepy employee through town on a mission to see if he was involved with Art's murder? No, I couldn't tell her the whole truth. My grandma and I were at a concert in the park. I got restless and decided to go for a walk. I was about to turn back when I heard you scream. Wow, lucky for me, she said. In that case, can I give you a ride? No thanks. It's a beautiful evening to walk. She put the vehicle into reverse and began easing out of the parking lot. I waved, and so did she. After Mariah had gone, I looked once again at the doorway Malcolm had entered earlier. I wondered where he was now. Part of me wanted to see if I could find him, but that felt like a dangerous idea. I gave a long, weary sigh and began to walk back to the park. I'd only made it a few steps when someone grabbed me from behind and pulled me into the shadows. All right. That is a cliffhanger ending, if I do say so myself. So next time, chapter 28, we'll find out what happens, because now Chloe has been accosted. So, all right, everybody, I thank you for joining me. I thank you for being part of this group that's listening to the book aloud. And if you like this video, would you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of A History of Murder. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.